up, guys? So now that it's the end of the year, it's time for me to look back and give you my top 10 favorite movies of 2021. It's gonna be a hard task, so a lot of good movies this year, a lot of 10 out of 10s, a lot of movies I recommend you see before you die, so having to pick 10 of them is gonna be a challenge. My only rule for a film to qualify for this list is I have to have seen it, okay? I haven't seen everything, I've seen a good chunk, but not everything. And as always, remember, this is just my opinion, okay? Do let me know your top 10 movies of the year in the comment section down below. Also help support my channel by hitting the thumbs up button, and if you haven't done so already, click subscribe. All right, let's go. Number 10. We're kicking the list off with a comedy. It is Sean Baker's Red Rocket. If you ask me, in today's climate, comedy is pretty much the hardest genre you can do nowadays, because you can't make everybody laugh. And for me, it's rare to find a comedy where I'm laughing consistently, but Sean Baker's Red Rocket was a riot. I was laughing non-stop. The plot is about a down-on-his-luck, out-of-work porn actor who moves back to Texas to regroup and also plot his big comeback into the adult film industry. And it is genuinely hilarious. And this film features the performance of the year from Simon Reggs. This was the part he was born to play. He did have a background in porn before he became a film actor, so I don't think there's another actor on the planet that could have done as good a job as he does. Literally nobody. He is perfect in this role. This film is worth watching just for his performance alone, and it is an absolute crime that he is probably not going to get an Oscar nomination for it. It's released in UK cinemas sometime next year. I do highly recommend go watching it in a theatre with others. This is a movie that is best experienced with other people. Next up at number 9, we have a superhero movie, and I was trying to decide between two superhero movies. I wanted to put both of them on this list, but I just didn't have the space. So I do want to give an honorable mention to Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings. If this was a top 11 of the year, that would be number 11. That movie kicked ass. It completely reinvigorated the MCU in a post-Endgame world. But for number 9, I've given it to John Watts for Spiderman No Way Home. No spoilers, of course. This film is actually still in cinemas at the time of me recording this review, but this film delivered. There were a lot of expectations for this film, and if you ask me, this film shattered those. The film is essentially 2.5 hours of fan service, but it was so entertaining, so nostalgic, so surprisingly emotional as well. I was expecting to be a little bit let down by this film, but it didn't happen. I thought it was amazing. It totally lived up to the hype. Next up at number 8, we have a musical. 2021 really was the year of musicals. It was hard to just pick one to put on this list. There were a lot of average movie musicals this year, but there were also some truly spectacular ones, which is why I want to give another honorable mention to Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. I absolutely love that movie. I wish I had the space to include it on this list, but the musical which struck a chord with me, pardon the pun, the most was Lin-Manuel Miranda's Tick, Tick, Boom. If you ask me, West Side Story was better executed, but Tick, Tick, Boom moved me more deeply. This musical biopic about the composer Jonathan Larson, playing this film by Andrew Garfield, was one of the most emotionally resonant movies of the entire year for me. As a 31-year-old creative living in a big city, struggling to make a career out of their craft, I completely related to the story and the character of Jonathan Larson. It was like watching my own story right there on the screen, just with amazing musical numbers. Andrew Garfield also delivers one of the best performances of the year. He disappears into this role, he gives himself to it, he is so flipping good. The directorial feature debut of Lin-Manuel Miranda was so brilliant, it gave me all the feels, this film. At number 7, we have the little movie that could. It's Sean Heeder's Coda, the feel-good hit of 2021. This coming-of-age drama about a girl born into a family where all her family members are deaf, and her trying to figure out whether she should stay in her small town and stay with her family who depend on her, or leave the small town to pursue a career in singing, which is her true passion. It just really touched me, this film. It was so damn adorable. This is straight up schmaltz, but it's schmaltz done so flippin' well. The script is so well written, all of the characters are so fleshed out, and all performed beautifully by the actors. Talk about perfect casting. You've got Emilia Jones, Troy Kotsur, Daniel Durand, Marley Matlin, Eugenio Derbez. Everybody in this film fits their role like a glove. Everyone is so good. And all of the emotional stuff in this film totally lands. It really is just a lovely, lovely watch. Just thinking about it right now is bringing the biggest, dorkiest smile to my face. It's just an utterly heartwarming film. If you haven't seen it, and you're feeling down, or got those post-holiday blues, watch it. It is guaranteed to cheer you up. Next up at number 6, we have the sci-fi epic from Denis Villeneuve, Dune Part 1. Based on a novel by Frank Herbert, they've tried to adapt Dune before, but never really succeeded. Many have called it an unadaptable story. The odds were stacked against this film, but Denis Villeneuve smashed it out of the galaxy. I didn't know anything about Dune before seeing this film, but I fell in love with this story, these worlds, these characters. Denis Villeneuve managed to make the story accessible for newbies like me, but also stayed true for the Dune fans. That is not an easy thing to pull off when you're dealing with a story this vast and epic. There's an old adage, always leave the audience wanting more, and Denis did just that. I wanted to spend more time on Arrakis. Part 2 cannot get here quick enough. Dune is one of those movies which reminds us of the necessity of the big screen experience, about the value of going to a cinema. It's one of those movies that reaffirms why I do what I do, why I love going back to the cinema and talking about the cinematic experience. To get lost in a story, to be transported to another world. Dune is also an all-rounder. It's pretty faultless in every department. It gets so much right, this film. Casting, direction, cinematography, score, sound, visual effects, costume design, production design, makeup. It's pretty damn flawless. If you ask me, Dune is peak cinema. Next up at number 5, we have the feature debut of Frank Kranz called Mass. Where Dune is cinema at its most grandest and epic, Mass is cinema at its most minimal and raw. Sometimes the best stories are the most simple ones, and this is just a 4-person chamber piece told in real time, performed by 4 sensational actors, giving some of the most powerful and devastating performances of all time. The power of this film comes from the fact that it's not trying to be flashy, and it doesn't need to. It's just great writing, performed by great actors, with a director who gives the actors room to find these characters. Everything about this film felt so honest and real. Watching Mass for the first time was an experience I will never forget. It absolutely floored me. Films like Mass don't come around all too often. This really is something special. At number 4, we have a film that feels like it came out absolutely ages ago. I know to some people it's probably a 2020 movie, but the UK didn't get it till 2021, and it is Florian Zeller's The Father. Another masterful display of 2 actors doing what they do best and giving such wonderful performances. You've got Olivia Colman and Anthony Hopkins, and Anthony Hopkins, somewhat shockingly, but totally deservedly, managed to win Best Actor at the Oscars last year for his performance as Anthony, an elderly gentleman who is battling with dementia. Like Mass, this is again another simple story told so powerfully. We've seen plenty of stories about families dealing with an elderly relative getting dementia or Alzheimer's, but none quite so visceral or as emotionally effective as The Father. And that's because the story is told from the point of view of Anthony himself. We walk a mile in his shoes, and it is one of the most empathetic experiences you can have watching a film. Because of Anthony Hopkins' exceptional performance, as well as Zeller's sublime direction, where he uses creative trickery in the way that he structures, blocks, and edits the film. It really is such a disorienting and brilliant film. At number 3, we have a family film which I was gutted I didn't get to see in the cinema. It's Michael Rianda and Jeff Rawls' The Mitchells versus the Machines. The film is about a dysfunctional family, the Mitchells, who take a road trip during a robot uprising and have to save the world. Bish bash bosh, what a film. It is the perfect family film which both kids and adults can enjoy in equal measure. The animation is dazzling. It's on a similar level to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It's so funny. It's got great action set pieces. The soundtrack is great, and also there's some thinly veiled satire about our dependency on technology. It's a family film which is entertaining but also makes you think. It is just a total blast. It's endlessly rewatchable, this film. At number 2, we got another somewhat late entry for you guys. It's the dark comedy from Emerald Fennell, Promising Young Woman. This film features Carey Mulligan's best performance in years, playing Cassandra, a woman who's out for social justice by teaching men about their own behavior. She shows the self-proclaimed good guys that they ain't so good after all. This movie shocked and delighted me. Like Get Out, it's one of those films that wakes you up to something that is an issue that's right in front of our faces, but often we're so oblivious to. Everything about this movie I loved. The killer soundtrack, the bubblegum aesthetic, the sharp satirical writing and direction from Emerald Fennell. Carey Mulligan and Bo Burnham give phenomenal performances. Promising Young Woman just slaps. Before we get to number one, I just want to give you some honorable mentions because there were so many amazing movies this year and just not enough slots in this video to discuss them. So here are some honorable mentions of some of my favorite movies of 2021. We've got Spencer, Titane, Vivo, The Last Duel, Barb and Star, Go to Vista Del Mar, Minari, Zola, King Richard, Encanto, I Care a Lot, and The Tragedy of Macbeth. So we finally made it to number one. My favorite movie of 2021 is actually a rom-com, believe it or not. Yep, definitely didn't see that one coming. It's Joaquin Trier's The Worst Person in the World. Like Thomas Vinterberg's Another Round, which came in at number one on my list last year, The Worst Person in the World wasn't even on my radar. I had zero expectations for it. I saw it at the London Film Festival, went into it not knowing anything about it, came out of it absolutely loving it. It was a total surprise, an absolute pleasure to watch. Like Tick Tick Boom, it's a film that as a 31-year-old, I saw a lot of myself in this film. Renata Reinspear plays our protagonist Julie, who is a millennial trying to figure out the whole adulting thing. Essentially, it's a couple hours of watching her making adult choices or not making adult choices, whether it's romantically, professionally, socially. She's burdened with too much choice and doesn't want to commit to anything. It's a struggle that a lot of us millennials can relate to. Some movies perfectly encapsulate a collective feeling of a particular generation, and The Worst Person in the World spoke to me on so many different levels. It felt like a film that was made specifically for me. It's also a romantic comedy, but it doesn't behave like a typical cliched rom-com. It's got an unconventional structure. It definitely takes some risks, this film. There's a few wonderfully weird set pieces which totally work. The characters are all dimensional. It addresses real world topics and issues but without preaching an agenda. But it's also funny, moving, and a total joyride to watch. And that's why it gets my number one spot for my favorite films of 2021. The Worst Person in the World is in UK cinemas March 25th, and if I have any influence on you guys at all, please do watch it in a cinema. It's absolutely phenomenal. Such a treat, this movie. Go enjoy yourself at the cinema. It's one of the best. There you have it, guys. Those are my top 10 movies of 2021. What do you guys think of my list? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let me know what your favorite movies of 2021 were in that comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you want more movie, TV, and Oscars related content, don't forget to click subscribe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd, it's all in that video description down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, the Oscars, and popcorn culture, I'm Lee Carefield, and I'll see you in 2022.